tonight's Fort Wayne Community Schools Board of Trustees meeting. This meeting will be open to the public during Indiana's ongoing public health emergency as declared by Governor Holcomb. Masks must be worn at all times on FWCS grounds. Social distancing will be practiced at the meeting. Therefore, some members of the public who wish to attend may be excluded. The public is encouraged to view this meeting on cable Comcast 54 and Frontier 24, the live stream on our Facebook page, or the LTV 2454 FWCS YouTube channel. Priority for attendance in person will be given to members of the media. And we'll begin this meeting like we do every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And now roll call of members.
Good evening. Steve Corona from the 5th District.
Glenna Yale, 2nd District.
Tom Smith, 3rd District.
Ann Duff, Member at Large.
Raleigh Booker, 4th District.
And I am Maria Norman, Member at Large. Julie Hollingsworth is not with us this evening, so I am filling in for her. And we are joined by Dr. Mark Daniels, our Superintendent, and Angie Filler, the Clerk of the Board. Welcome, Angie.
Thank you.
Yes. All right. Make sure I'm doing everything. We have no awards and recognition this evening, so we moved on to our consent agenda, which consists of the approval of minutes from our August 10th meeting, vouchers and payroll, vouchers for the period ending August 24th, and payroll for the period ending July 31st, and the personnel report.
Madam Chair, I'd move approval of the items listed under the consent agenda.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks, Glenna. Dr. Daniels, was there anything that you wanted to mention on the personnel report?
No, there is not. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, all those in favor of approving the 3 items on the consent agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Awesome. And we have no old business and our new business this evening. It is recommended that the board, It is recommended that the board approve a change in the daily rate for certified substitute teachers. Beginning with the 2021 school year, the following will be the new daily rates for substitute teachers. Individuals with 60 credit hours will receive $110. Bachelor's degree and above will be $115. Long-term rate with no teaching license is $150. And a long-term rate with the Indiana teacher's license, no change. And that's the daily contracted teacher rate. And questions will be addressed by Charles Cammack, Chief Operations Officer. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any questions for Charles?
Yeah, I vaguely remember this happening, but I think a while ago, Fort Wayne Community Schools, you had to have a bachelor's degree to be a substitute, and has that changed?
Yes, that changed last year, I believe. We reduced it to an associate's degree or 60 hours to help with recruiting.
And are we in need of substitutes currently?
Well, we're always in need of substitutes.
And how can a person apply to sub?
There's an application. They can go to the district's website and apply. They have to get a substitute teacher's license, which I think costs $5, but it's not a hard process.
Okay. And then is there a training they have to do with Fort Wayne Community Schools?
Well, we're working on that component of it. There are some professional learning that we're going to include substitute teachers in on, but right now, if they get a license and we hire them, they don't have to have any other additional training. But we will have more training for them coming up.
All right, thank you.
And Charles, where does this put us in line with area school districts in terms of how much we pay our substitutes.
We are highest paid substitutes.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other questions? All right. All those in favor of approving this signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, well, that was the only thing on our agenda today. So thank you to Julie for being absent on a day with one agenda item. Our next regular board meeting will be Monday, September 14th, 2020, here in Grile. And that leaves us with board member comments.
Yes, I made an unexpected but pleasant trip to Butler University on Saturday. I played the role, I guess, of surrogate grandfather to the Wayne 2020 salutatorian Emiliano Cabrera. And big thanks to guidance counselor Helen Tobo for getting Emiliano to school. On Friday, he got cold feet or whatever. I'm not sure what was going on, but he was thinking of not going to school. Very bright young man, had received thousands of dollars in scholarship. I'm not sure what was going through his head, but Helen convinced him that going to college was the right thing to do. He had taken a job, a salaried position, paying $30,000 a year into a 17-year-old kid. That's a lot of money, but I'm not sure it was much of a career. He wants to be a neurosurgeon, had shadowed Dr. Kevin Leffers a couple of times. Dr. Leffers is a orthopedic surgeon specializing in hand surgery. And anyway, Emiliano texted me Friday and said if I could go to school with him, he would be very grateful. And I said, well, when are we going? And he said, tomorrow. So I said, yes, I think it was the right thing to do. So I spent 10 hours taking him, his mother, and his sister to Butler. His mother doesn't speak a lot of English. I was glad I was there. There's a lot of steps to these days. You have to make sure you're not infected with the virus and a bunch of other steps. But he's there, he's in the right place. I learned, however, that Saturday night, I hope he wasn't among this group, but there were a group of students at Butler who violated health and safety guidelines, and so Butler started its semester online today for 2 weeks. But anyway, Emiliano is there. He is going to do himself and Fort Wayne Community Schools proud. So anyway, it was a great trip. Thank you, Helen Tobo.
I just want to thank Principal Dana Enkenbrook at Harris Elementary and Nick Sharon at Jefferson Middle School and Neil Rupp at Shambaugh Elementary School for allowing me to attend their first day of school as kids returned. And it was really neat because not only were the kids very excited to be there and the families were all taking pictures of their little ones on their first day of school. It was neat to see, it was reassuring, let me put it that way, to be able to go into the buildings and see all the various planning and precautions that have been taken to try and reopen our schools safely. So I want to thank all those who have been involved in the administration and all the teachers who put that extra time into planning before school opened.
I just want to thank all the parents and teachers and students and principals for their diligence and patience during the reopening, the successful reopening of our schools. It's been quite an accomplishment. And I also want to thank the board and the administration for us working together to provide the funds to buy all the new education equipment for in-classroom and remote learning. There's been a lot of improvements, and we're still working on them, but I want the public to know that we have really went the extra mile to make sure that this new learning situation can go as well as possible, and I want to thank the administration for that. Next, over the past month or so, I've had a number of people email me about an issue that they don't understand or would like to know more about. And that is the board's policy of holding off public comment till after our meeting is adjourned, and therefore the comments that people make are not televised. Now, they asked me, why is that? And I said, well, I really don't know. That happened before my term on the board. But I said, I think it's a very important discussion, and I think this board should review that policy from time to time. It's very good to review the policies of this board. And I would like to ask that this policy discussion about public input at our meetings be placed on our next meeting agenda on September 14th for discussion and review by the board. I think the public will be very interested in knowing what the status of that is, the history of it, and are we going to continue to do that? And I say this because a lot of people are confused, upset, because they don't understand why we're doing this. And I don't either. So I'm asking that, I'll ask Julie, our president, since she controls the agenda, to place that item on the agenda at our next meeting for discussion and review. Where that leads us, I don't know. Maybe it can be talked about in one meeting. Maybe it will take more time than that. But I think it's going to be very important. The public, I think, really needs to know why we conduct our business that way. And I'm sure at the time, and maybe still to this day, the reasons are very good. I simply don't know. And I also think a lot of people who watch these meetings don't understand that. So I think it's time to have a discussion and review of our policy for public comment. And I will be talking to Julie and ask her to place this item on our agenda for discussion and review at our next meeting.
I visited 4 elementaries on our first day, and Portage and Northside on our first day of school. And it's kind of all a blur. These 4 elementaries just kind of ran together now. But I went to Price first, and they really seemed to have their routine already down. They knew what they were doing, as far as I could tell. I did help the assistant principal put the armbands on the kids as they got off the bus, the younger ones, so they knew what bus they needed to take. And then at Studi, I think it was Studi, I just walked through the building on my own, and I did see, I don't know if they were teachers or classroom assistants, but it was really cute watching them help these kids learn how to wash their hands. They had them lined up in the hall, and they took 2 in at a time and had them sing happy birthday while they washed their hands, so they knew how long to wash their hands for. And these 2 guys were very energetic and very enthusiastic, so I'm sure they were kindergartners, even though some of them seemed like they'd been there forever and knew what was going on. But with these 2 guys that were leading them, I'm sure they felt very comfortable being there on their very first day of school. Then my second day I went to Northside, which is my alma mater, and that was the last place I was employed. But it was kind of fun because I had on this mask and my badge, and I just started walking around the building, and then the kids started coming to me like I knew something. But and fortunately, I knew the building because they were all asking for directions, because in the Northside it is so confusing. But I remembered everything and could lead them, escorted several of them to their classrooms. So I was probably there over an hour doing that, but it was really fun. So, and I hope Dr. Daniel can give us a report, how the first and second first days went this year. So look forward to hearing about that.
Okay. Would you like me, next meeting or this meeting?
This meeting.
This meeting, okay.
So I was able to visit 4 elementary schools on the first day of school. I went towards the end of the day, which allowed me to kind of talk to the teachers and the administrators and principals to see how things really went on that day. I caught a few of them as they were dismissing, and so just seeing the teachers work together, these incredible systems to kind of keep social distancing in place and make sure that the kids knew where they were going, whether they were car riders or bus riders or walkers. It was really impressive. I saw them in real time work through some of the issues, that arose, but they worked together great as a team, and it felt really good to see. I felt, a lot of the teachers that I talked to seemed like they didn't have as much anxiety as I guess they thought that they thought they might have on that first day. And then my kids are also doing remote learning, so we've been going through some of the adjustments that we had to make with doing that. And so I just really want to thank my son's teachers, the administrators, support staff, and the tech staff who have really worked hard to make sure that the kids at home are getting that same attention and quality education as the kids in the classroom.
So I can say that, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine.
I'm
Go
okay.
right ahead.
So I can say that we are constantly evaluating this process, and it will be changing on a regular basis, only because we're still seeing students who are flowing into the building or flowing out of the building, some choosing remote, some choosing in person. So this Friday is a key day for us, because at that point in time, from listening to building principals to listening to teachers, that process we need to settle on so we can then determine how best to meet the needs of our remote kids while we're meeting the needs of our in-person kids. So we've done some surveying of our staff, and as well as FWA has as well. We're very similar. High level of anxiety the first day. Prior to the first day, after the first 2 days, it started to decrease, but still very high level, which means we are in a stressful time. There's no doubt about that. The kids, I couldn't ask for more cooperation from our kids. They were keeping their masks on, they were listening, they were following directions. As the patterns are in the buildings, stay on the right side, stay in, follow that direction. I mean, just knock on wood. It was really, really a pleasure to see that happen, and so appreciative, because that means the teachers and the principals, administration, they've done an excellent job of preparing for that day. So our task right now, with the fact that we're looking at a very different system, a system that we have gone into hyperspeed to be able to bring our students back into our buildings, as well as communicate and further the learning of our students when they're remote. But we are finding that there will be adjustments, i.e., how do we have more totally devoted teachers for remote learning versus totally devoted teachers to in-person learning. We're finding when you try to do the blending, that's a challenge. I'll just put it that way. It's a challenge. So with that said, we decided that, yes, first of all, again, I want to thank you as a board allowing us to move the beginning of school 3 days forward in the calendar year, because we definitely needed that additional time to train. But we also need continuous training. Thus, this Wednesday having our 2-hour late start, it's about providing an opportunity for our teachers to collaborate with each other, or to specifically ask questions of their principals, such as, how can I do Zooms with breaking into groups? How can I better use tablet? How can I continue Padlet? How can I continue to implement remote learning strategies that are really engaging our students? And that was one of the questions I asked. We're on a seminar this afternoon with districts all across the country. So Denver, Baltimore, part of the Wallace Foundation. And that was one of the questions I asked them. How are you measuring student engagement in learning in this new environment? So we had that discussion, and it's something we need to start to ask that question. How can we, again, assist our teachers, provide additional training as necessary? How can we support our principals as they're working through these, I'll say, ever-changing circumstances? But bottom line is, how do we continue to ramp up our virtual learning while we're maintaining hopefully a safe environment, which contact tracing is contact tracing. We're experiencing that just like every other district. But I'm so, again, appreciative to the board as well as Mary Hess and Charles Cammack for ensuring that we have nurses or nurse assistants in each one of our buildings. Huge piece for to take that burden away from the administrative staff, but also our administrative assistants. And it's necessary because we are definitely, you never know what you're saying, please stay home if you're ill. But sometimes you don't know until someone has the virus, and that's because a relative had it at home or an acquaintance, and we are where we are. Knock on wood, we've been very limited cases in regards to our, that's right, to our staff. But we are experiencing some upticks in regards to the social distancing piece. So you're going to see more and more of that. And like I've said, we needed to start the year to be able to have these experiences so we can make adjustments to better meet the needs of our kids. But until we experienced it, there was absolutely no way for us to understand what we're doing. Okay. Most of the other school districts across the country are in a delay pattern or they've yet to start. So in other words, they're into remote learning for 9 weeks. That would be Denver, also hearing from Baltimore and so forth, and New York. New York, though, I'm anxious to see how they'll implement. But we needed that. We needed to get our students into the buildings. We needed to have discussions. And of course, there's the whole social emotional learning piece. So I think, again, because we had specific training, because we had curriculum that was going to address not only the let's begin school, but let's begin school with discussion of where we are today and the whole social emotional piece, where we are as a community, and where we are then as a school community. So that's, it is just going to be something we'll take day by day. So I did send a video message to all of our staff this afternoon, just again, thanking them for their efforts, thanking them for, again, providing their expertise and working with our kids, but also saying, if you need things, please make sure you communicate that through your principals, then we can do things at the district level, or they can do things at the building level. So it's right now, I will say we have very tired people because they've been working really some teachers would tell me, well, I'm doing online, I'm doing in person, it's like I'm having 2 jobs. Mm-hmm. So we also are asking the question, or trying to address that issue with what are the expectations we have of our teachers, because they also have, should we say, a life. And as such, they need to be able to, okay, here's the expectation of I'm available at this and such time, and then they have to shut down because they are actually continuing the planning even into the late hours of the night. So you can do that for a while, but you can't sustain that. So we're trying to stay very in tune and in touch with what's going on, both in the buildings, but I love hearing the reports from parents saying, yes, this is working well, but we probably, I know we have room for improvement. So as long as we have that attitude, I've been very, again, knock on wood, so appreciative of our parents, their understanding, but also teachers understanding, principal understanding. This is a journey this year, and really grateful. So that's my report on COVID-19 and how we're addressing that this year with remote learning and in-person learning.
I do appreciate the fact that you're taking into account what the teachers are doing, what issues they are having, and trying to make readjustments by listening to them and their concerns. Yeah. And, like I said, or like Raleigh said, when she went to the buildings, it seemed like, just a regular start of a school year, except for the mask. It really was like you normally see the teachers and principals, even though they said, oh my God, this is just crazy. I mean, they say that every year, despite COVID or not. But, it really did, to me, seem like they had it under control, knew what they were doing, and doing a good job. So.
Very good. Thank you.
I like to hear that you are surveying the teachers. Will you also survey the parents?
So that is
get a
something we've been
feel?
talking about. Some of the groups were mentioning about every 5 weeks. I think we're ready to launch another PTA type Zoom session so we can gather that input. We've talked about that at Cabinet. So probably in the next week or so, we wanted to have an opportunity for the students to acclimate a bit and our teachers to work through a few of the newness factors. So maybe at the end of next week or the next week after, having that opportunity. Some are also surveying their parents as well, which is always a good thing. Again, I'm very interested in how our remote learning is being received, what we can do to improve it, and also providing realistic expectations for our parents. Some are thinking, well, my child's not engaged the entire time with the teacher. Well, that's never going to happen. It's physically impossible, but that student does need to be routinely engaged throughout that day. And so we're working through that. Again, perhaps as we move more towards dedicated remote teachers, they're going to adjust and have implement improvements in that area. But that's going to be hopefully we're going to be examining that this week very closely and asking the question as we go into buildings, what, as you a teacher, particular teacher, why is it that you do this so well? What is your key? And then taking that and saying, okay, how can we make that happen in more classrooms or with more teachers? But I do think there is something to the dedicated piece. And that may mean that we're going to have to actually have greater need for teachers, greater expenses for us. But again, we want truly a remote program that is a level of excellence. It can't be mediocre, and it certainly can't be what we had last spring. So we all have agreed to that. And that may be the case that we have to utilize some additional dollars. But we'll see. And yeah, we'll see.
I just wanted to also commend you. I've heard a couple of your interviews on the radio program, and I can't tell because you have a mask on if you're still smiling, but you seem to be taking this, new school year in stride. And I really appreciate the updates that you give us as a board, because including us on the emails that you send out to parents and the rest of the community is very helpful.
Good.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
And just as a last minute sort of update, I wanted to remind our families that are remote or doing a hybrid option that technology is great when it works. And so our wonderful staff in the FWCS help desk are going to provide some tech on duty days, and the first one is tomorrow. And those are 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. and tomorrow it will be at Kikianga Lane and Anthus. And I know I saw some questions about whether people are going to be, sitting in cars, and that's not the intent. The intent is that you would show up with your device and go inside the buildings, make sure that you're wearing masks, and then the techs will help you through whatever issues you may be having with your device. So, and there are additional days, so those are on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 3 to 6 the next 2 weeks, and there are various locations, and I will not confuse everyone because taking notes is difficult, but several different locations. I would check our social media outlets for those locations and times. But again, thank you to the help desk for all the assistance that they are providing our students and families. And I believe that's all my comments. Does anyone like to adjourn?
Move for adjournment?
Sure.
Thank you, thank you. All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you very much.